I am African, I'm a mother, and I'm raising a new breed of leaders for the African future. Hello, African Mama. It's good to see you again. Feels like a very long time. But it's been just 2 weeks. How have you been? Wherever it is you're listening to us from or watching us from, you're welcome again to the RL Show, where RL means Afri Moms Raising African Leaders. I am Zoe Octavia Obaze, and I'm never alone. There's always the steady, the study, and the... I need to look for another S.
Please. Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You know the drill. Wherever it is you're watching from, we know we're in different time zones. This is Chisom Ukachukwu. Of course, on the RL Show, you can call me Somi. And today is going to be another interesting an exciting episode of the ARAL show on Digit 1024 Radio. So now will be a good time to say that you should subscribe to our channel at the ARAL show and subscribe to our Digit 1024 Radio for more exciting, refreshing content. And you know, it will bite for you to like this video and share it to your friends, because on the ARAL show we specifically pick topics that we know that will make impact in breeding that next generation of African leaders that we're looking forward to having.
Exactly. By the way, Somi is looking so pretty this morning. She's always a...
Why are you?
She's always
Don't mind.
giving beauty vibes. Probably African. Okay.
All right. Okay, so let me act like an ass person. Let me say thank you.
You're welcome.
You're not looking bad.
You're
yourself.
welcome. Thank you, baby. Okay, today's conversation is one that is really interesting. Sparking love for education in the African child. There's an anonymous quote that I would like to quote, but before then, once again, our conversation is sparking life for education in the African child. Someone said, a good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination. But when you add to that a literate tongue or a literate pen, then you have something very special. I'll take it again. An anonymous quote says, a good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination. But when you add to that a literate tongue or a literate pen, then you have something very special. The RL Show is young mothers coming together to remind ourselves that the children we have raised are our passport to the kind of future that we desire. And so we're saying to ourselves, let's raise them deliberately and consciously to be the kind of future African leaders that we want to see. So when we see quotes like this, our interest are sparked. We're asking ourselves, so how can Somi and I, and you out there, African mama, watching us from all of the African countries, and even those in diaspora who are Africans, we are asking, how can we spark the love for education in the African child? But guess what? We have a very interesting, should I call it reference now, or a very interesting story. And I'll be handing you over to Somi. She has the details.
Okay, so when we talk about education, we cannot overemphasize the importance of education in raising the new breed of African leaders that we want to see for Africa. Yeah. Education is key. And we also recognize, don't forget, the RL Show is about Afri Moms Raising African Leaders. That is not to diminish the role of fathers in also breeding the next generation of African leaders. But our focus is on Afri Moms. We hope that someday someone somewhere will rise to step into the gap for Afri dads. Okay, so today, you know, inspiration is a very good thing. It's always good to look at the stories of people gone past, people that have gone ahead of us, and glean from their experiences, and glean from their stories, and glean from, you know, their strategies and all that. And today we'll be shining the spotlight on Sonya Carson. I don't know if it rings a bell, but I'm sure when I say Ben Carson, that will probably ring a bell. So Sonya Carson is the mother, or was, because she's late now, was the mother of Dr. Ben Carson and Curtis Carson. And she is a remarkable, I keep using is, she was a remarkable figure whose life story exemplifies resilience, determination, and the profound influence a mother can have on her children's education and success. So, born in 1928 in Tennessee, Sonya faced significant hardships from her early age. So, before I go further, let me say that this, what I'm reading right now, was gleaned from the internet. So, if for any reason there are a little gray areas in the story, apologies, we are speaking based on what we saw online. We don't have a first-hand experience about this at all. So, she was one of 24 siblings and grew up in foster homes, experiencing instability that would shape her understanding of family and education. So from this, we can already see that the impact of parenting, the impact of family on the well-being of a child, and eventually the adults that child becomes, cannot be overemphasized. So at just 13 years of age, she married Robert Solomon Carson, a man 15 years her senior. So if she was 13, that means Robert was 28 at the time, and soon had two sons, Cousin and Benjamin. However, her marriage was tumultuous, and she ultimately divorced her husband when she discovered that he had not divorced his first wife. So apparently, he still had another family outside of the family he had with Sonya. So following the divorce, Sonya struggled to provide for her children. So she became the sole parent to Curtis and Benjamin. And she worked multiple jobs as a domestic worker, often leaving home before her sons wake up and returning late at night. Despite her limited formal education, having only completed 3rd grade, Sonya was determined to instill a love for learning in her children. Recognizing that her sons were struggling academically, especially Ben, who often felt like a dumb child. Well, for those of us who have watched Gifted Hands, I'm sure we can relate a lot to the story.
Yes.
And permits me to say that Ben didn't just feel, he actually voiced it several times that he was actually a dumb child. So it left the realm of feeling and it became an expression of how he saw himself. So several times he voiced it out to his mother that he's dumb and incapable of learning.
Wow.
So Sonya sought divine guidance on how to help them succeed. She observed that the successful families she worked for read extensively and watched little television. Inspired by this, she implemented a strict reading regimen for her sons. Sonya limited their television time to just 2 programs a week and required them to read 2 library books each week, followed by writing reports on those books. So it didn't just stop at reading. She wanted to make sure they knew what they were reading. So she enforced the fact that they have to create a report from what they have read. So although she could not read the reports herself, if you've read Gifted Hands, I'm sure you will chuckle at this point, because several times when they bring the books to her to probably help them read something, because she was an illiterate, but she didn't want her children to know. Probably she didn't want it to, dampen their self-esteem and expectation for them. So she will always pretend, oh, my glasses is not here, or find one excuse or the other. But she was only trying to mask her inability to read. So although she could not read the reports herself, she marked them with check marks and highlights to encourage her sons. This simple yet powerful strategy transforms Ben's attitude towards education. He later recounted that reading opened up new words for him, allowing him to envision a brighter future and realize that he had control over his destiny. Sonya Carson's influence was pivotal in Ben Carson's journey, from struggling students to the renowned pediatric neurosurgeon and author that all of us have come to admire and draw inspiration from. He credits his mother with instilling in him the belief that hard work and perseverance could lead to success. Ben often quotes her life motto, "Learn to do your best, and God will do the rest." So the mother kept emphasizing that. This philosophy guided him throughout his academic journey, leading him to Yale University and eventually to Johns Hopkins University, where he became a leading neurosurgeon. In his various speeches and writings, Ben Carson had expressed immense gratitude for his mother's sacrifices and unwavering support. He acknowledged that her determination and faith were instrumental in shaping his character and achievements. Sonya Carson's legacy extends beyond her immediate family. Inspired by her life and the principles she instilled, Ben and his wife Candy founded the Carson Scholars Fund, which awards scholarships to students who demonstrate academic excellence and community service. They also created reading rooms in schools to promote literacy, furthering Sonya's mission of fostering a love for learning. Sadly, Sonya Carson passed away in November 2022. Wow, that's just 2 years back.
Yes.
But her impact lives on through her son's accomplishments and the countless lives touched by their charitable work. Ben Carson has frequently stated, "All that I am is because of the love of my mother," highlighting the profound influence she had on his life. So Sonya Carson's story is a powerful testimony to the vital role that mothers play in their children's education and development. Her resilience in the face of adversity and her commitment to her son's success serve as an inspiration to many, proving further that with love, determination, and a focus on the importance of education in shaping our children, significant obstacles can be overcome. So I encourage you today, as we come to the end of Sonya Carson's story, if you've not watched the movie Gifted Hands or read the book Gifted Hands, you might want to. As a mother, you will probably glean a lot. I would recommend the film, of course, probably because I'm a visual person, so I was able to visualize the book, and you will understand better how far the length that she went through into seeing her children become the recognized people that they are today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Somi, thank you so much for that read. A question that comes to mind is, can an illiterate mother raise academically sound children?
I think we've answered that.
No, you know why I said that? I said that the question comes to mind, but this has sort of answered it.
Yeah.
Because here is a woman who couldn't read, right? And even when her children bring their materials, she would look for excuses, so that perhaps their expectations are not dampened. But see how she rose and then pushed them, perhaps to heights she knew she couldn't reach. So this is powerful, and it leads us to certain quotes about education.
Yeah.
Malcolm X says, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." I take that again. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. So what that illiterate woman did was, she gave her children a passport to the future. She didn't know what it was going to be, but she prepared them in that day for the tomorrow that they eventually found. So for instance, here in Nigeria, I do not know exactly what your timelines are and exactly what your immediate reality is. But here in Nigeria, for instance, schools are on holiday, and so children are home. And I came across a very interesting graphic on social media that showed a woman on heels, a cartoon, and then she had veins on her neck, and then she was pointing this way, and then the person says, "This is how mothers look now that it's on holiday," because children are everywhere, and then there's a lot of having to tell them to sit here and do that. But is it possible that in these moments of having our children around us and not in school, that we have golden opportunities to perhaps pass on some kind of edge or influence, or should I call it, an advantage to them? This is what I really mean. Let me communicate my thoughts. So on the average, once school resumes, we take our children to school very early in the morning, and then they come back sometime late in the afternoon, depending on your own schedule, right? So, but now that they are home and it's the holiday, they are more at home with us. Is it possible that we can stretch ourselves to say, okay, while they are home now, or more at home with me, can I push? Can we, for instance, take on this take borrow a leaf from Sonya Carson and say, okay, my child can read. Maybe I should commit to getting books for them to read. Can we try something like that? I'm throwing it out to us Afri moms. Is it possible? And what will be the value? So me, if we want to, if I'm saying to my friends now, and I'm saying to you, and I'm saying to myself that, can we get our boys to read more books? Can we get them to, beyond the 6334 curriculum, can we expose them to valuable information and knowledge deliberately, so that, education is something that they love and embrace? I'll say something after now, but what do you think? If we are doing that, what's our why? And what should be at the back of our minds?
Okay, so the thing is, education happens everywhere, every time.
Right.
Where we now differentiate it is when we talk about formal education. But then if there is formal education, what that means is there is informal education. So I think what we do during school session is give our children opportunity to get formal education.
Okay.
But the holidays should not be a time where they now get informal education.
Okay.
So education where they learn from, from life experiences, from things that happen around them. You probably send your child to go and buy groceries. You're teaching him simple addition. Like I do that with my first son. He runs errands now. So when he goes out, I tell him, so most times I tell him, just give them the money, tell them what you want to buy, and they give you change. But then I realized that I wasn't helping him. So when he comes back, I'll now ask him, so how much did you buy this thing? I want to be sure that he's aware of what he did. Do you understand? Yeah. So I'll ask him, how much did you buy this? So sometimes he struggles with it. He's not able to tell how much, but he just knows. I now ask him, so how much did you go out with? He tells me, so how much did you bring back? He tells me, so if you take away this amount you brought back from how much you went out with, what is left? That is a form of education, but he doesn't have to go to the school to get it.
Yes.
Or probably for those whose children are already cooking, for example, you can say, okay, so put 2 cups of this, 2 cups of... You're teaching the child, as in...
Yes.
So in Ben Carson's case, for example, from reading, he picked interest in rocks. And, in retrospect, I'm trying to wonder, what's the relationship between rocks and the neurosurgeon he finally became?
Right.
But he picked interest, as in he started learning about rocks and all those things. So you see that education happens everywhere and anywhere. That's why you see a lot of people, they don't even have formal education, but they are so exposed.
Okay.
They are so exposed. But then, like I said, everything boils down to reading. If you can get a child to be able to read, as in, reading gives you the privilege to experience things outside your immediate environment. You begin to put yourself in the picture. You begin to see things. And that's also where movies comes in. That's why you watch a movie. For a lot of us who've not been to America, but it feels like you've gone to America. It feels like you can say 1 or 2 things about America. How did you pick it? Probably from watching movies or reading books. Yeah. So that is what education is all about. Giving your child an experience that is beyond the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, and all those stuff. So when the child... So basically and one thing I noticed about Sonya Carson was that I don't think she restricted the books, because of course he was struggling with his academics.
Yes.
So she could have restricted the books to just academics,
yes.
ABC 1, 2, 3, but she allowed them. She said library books, so they were exploring.
Wow.
So they were exploring the whole books. It wasn't restricted to probably just academic books, and so they read wild and extensive. Wow. So I guess that played a role. So it's not just to restrict, this summer, the children, they are learning 1, 2, 3, they are learning ABCs. It's not just about that. It should be a wholesome journey. Education is supposed to be a wholesome experience. So it's not just the child knows. But that's why you see some children, they are good academically, but they can't hold their own outside. Like they can't stand for themselves. Their self-esteem is damping, but yet they are well good performing students academically. So education should be a wholesome experience, emotionally, intellectually, physically. It should be a wholesome experience.
Thank you, Somi. Let me echo what I can hear you say. So on the one hand, we are saluting Sonya Carson and her efforts to expose her children to reading.
Yeah.
And you highlighted that because where she sends them to is a library, we know that library is a collection of numerous genres and topics and subjects of body of language, of learning. And so they must have been exposed to all of those. But you are also trying to strike a balance for us to say that do not forget that education doesn't just happen within the four walls of a school.
Yeah.
So when, for instance, our children are on holiday and they are with us, it's an opportunity to expose them to other valuable kind of learning, which is, for instance, soft skills or, experiences around the home, in the society, in the family, values that it can pick up.
Yeah, even like museums, for example, because history is fast eroding.
Right.
It's, there was I watched House of Gar by Bolanle Austin Peters. It's a historical story about Bashoruga, I don't know, of Oyo State and all that. So while I was having that discussion with my husband hasn't watched it, but I told him, I think you would enjoy the movie. It's about Gar. He was not like Bashoruga. I said yes. He said, do you know why I remembered Bashoruga? I was taught that in school. So he remembered Bashoruga from school when social studies or is it history and all those stuff was still a thing. But these days it is fast eroding. So you as a parent, I don't know why that is, because I noticed in the curriculum all those things are not as vibrant as it used to be then. So as you as a parent, you cannot decide this holiday is a time to take them to museums.
That's you sparking the interest.
Yes, that's interest. So you can decide to take them to a museum or take them to one historical place. Tell them a story about that place. That gives you a well-read, a well-exposed child.
Yes.
So it's not just, that's why we also have to be conscious that it's not just, that's why a lot of parents are getting themselves worked up. My child is not doing well, because we restrict a child's ability to just knowing ABC and 1, 2, 3. But it's way beyond that.
It's way beyond that.
It's way beyond that.
Okay.
Because you now have to check, does this child even take initiative? Those are things that shows that a child is wholesome.
Okay.
Do you understand? So for Ben Carson, the mother had to do an inside work first before she was able to. Yes, before she was able to now enforce a lot of things. I think there was even a scene where they watched someone on TV or something, and she was like, "Would you like to be this or something like?" So she was sparking interest, because this was a child that is not even seen. In retrospect, I wonder how the small Ben Carson will be feeling seeing the Ben Carson that we know today.
Right.
He wouldn't have been able to imagine that Ben Carson would have become this Ben Carson that we hear about today.
Sure.
Do you understand? But someone had to step up to the plate, and that was the mother. And despite her limitation of being an illiterate, she stepped up to that plate, and she was able to produce the Ben Carson. In fact, in that Gifted Hands, they showed the video of where he separated Siamese twins, is it joined by head?
Yes.
And you could see the precision, you could see everything.
Yes.
And you're wondering, is this still the same? Because the guy was a mess totally.
Yes.
The young Ben Carson was a mess. He even had anger issue. He was this close to stabbing someone. But luckily the guy was wearing a belt, so the knife broke instead. So what that means is that he would have driven that knife into the guy's stomach if not for that belt. So, but all these things, that same Ben Carson is this Ben Carson that we know and celebrate today.
Thank you, Somi. Let me read a few thoughts by a few persons over the years. So someone says, Anne Lamott says, what matters most in reading is not that it improves my intelligence, but that it does so by increasing and harmonizing my knowledge. I read again. Anne Lamott, what matters most in reading is not that it improves my intelligence, but that it does so by increasing and harmonizing my knowledge. So, on one hand, Somi is reminding us and sparking our interest that another form of education we can give our children, in addition to preparing them for academic excellence, is, for instance, there is a tailor's shop just beside you. Does your child fully understand how a machine works? And this is a tailor's shop that the tailor is your friend. You visit her, you stop by her. But have you tried to take your child with you? So, you know what? We're sitting here today for 30 minutes, 1 hour. Just ask your questions, try your hands on the machine, get that knowledge. There's a carpenter's shop just on the other avenue. Have you tried to say, okay, my child, come along with me, just see how a carpenter works, and then have these conversations. You see something on television, and then perhaps a newscaster, and you watch your child just staring rather than just stopping there. Have you asked your child, do you think you like this? Do you want to do this? Now, that is a body of knowledge. But Anne is saying that, furthermore, when your child reads, what happens is that all of these knowledge, all of these experiences come together and harmonize into something very powerful. Of course, it increases your intelligence as well. You know, while I'm speaking, I remember the recent JAM examination in Nigeria. It was a sorry state. What happened was we had a troubling results, and there were questions all over the place. What happened to our education sector? What really is going on? So perhaps we might be finding an answer to forestall or stop this from reoccurring in the future when it comes to our children. Our children right now are very young, and they have not yet gotten to that stage of writing those kinds of examinations. But is it possible that perhaps if our children's interests are sparked such that they are not scared of examination, they are not thinking there's academics somewhere and then there is my real life somewhere. You know, there's that thought. That once I put on the school uniform, I put on workload, I put on boring learning. So they are not able to marry how my interest for football and my interest in playing games is equally important with chemistry and biology, and how it all just beautifully wraps up. But is that let me really ask my question again. So it's not really a question. I just want to feel your pulse and what you think. I'm saying that, is there a way we can get our children to embrace reading, formal learning, informal learning with the same zest, the same enthusiasm? I love playing games. I love being with mommy. I love running errands. I love reading. I love research. Is there a way to tie it all up so that it's interesting for them?
Okay, so the thing is exposure sparks interest. What do I mean by that? When Sonya Carson made those rules, no TVs except 2 programs a week, you have to watch read so number of books and write. Of course, they agitated.
Of course.
Do you understand?
Revolted.
They agitated. They were, but then she stamped her feet on it and insisted on it. And as time went by, she didn't have to. As in, they picked up that love, because you know there's something about results. For example, it's just like when you're gymming, for example, and over time, let's just say, okay, probably you're being forced to gym, probably for health reasons. Your doctor has imposed exercises on you and everything, and you start to do it. It's a struggle when you start, but eventually you see that you're feeling better. You see that your weight, you're looking better. That on its own is enough. Mount the pressure on you. It becomes something you're joyfully doing. Why? You have seen the benefits. So that was something that Sonya Carson kept killing her children's faces. Benefits. So that is one thing with children. So once the only way to spark the interest. So once the only way to spark the interest is to make them see why.
If I'd set